All right. We had a malfunction. Sorry about that. So, welcome everybody. Hybrid Pisces, your number one today. Welcome. Glad you're here. Hey, critters. Hey, Pam. I know I haven't been here much lately. Can't post comments to some destinations. Oh, well, I'll be like Scarlett O'Hara. I won't worry about that today. I'll worry about that tomorrow. Hey, Lashansky, I'm so excited to hear your opinion on this trial. Oh my gosh. It's crazy, isn't it? Hey, Tennessee, how are you doing? Yeah, so everybody's saying hello to everybody and all that good stuff. Look, I know that people are watching the trial. I've missed you guys too. Busy, busy, busy. I do have I have a live scheduled for this afternoon. I think at around 3 o'clock, because today is such a big day in the Leticia Stauch trial. I'm kind of thinking about moving that to like maybe 6 o'clock and give everybody time to finish watching what they want to watch related to Leticia and a vampire named Justice. So I'm giving that some thought, but I just couldn't resist. Listening. So I've been busy this morning. I did have somebody that didn't show up for their appointment, and so I used that time to sort of catch up, check in with the trial, and see what was going on. And I heard the psychologist who was talking about Leticia and having her conversation with the vampires. I believe the vampire's name is Justice. What is very interesting about that, however, is that that's also the name of the vampires in Twilight. And didn't Lori Vallow Daybell, didn't she also have a fascination with Twilight? It's a little scary, but anyway, weird that you have two middle-aged women, consumed by Twilight, and it's just silly. So very quickly, getting into the point of what this live is about, I wanted to take a minute and I wanted to talk about dissociative identity disorder as a psychiatric diagnosis, or as basically a very rare condition. And the reason why this becomes, important today is because Leticia Stauch is claiming to have dissociative identity disorder, and that's supposed to excuse her from the death of Gannon. I guess what she's saying is, was it little Lulu? No, I wrote it down. Little Lucia. Wasn't it? Little Lucia. Yeah. It also could have been Jasmine. It could have been Taylor that killed Gannon, perhaps Tisha, Jasper, Victoria, Christina. I mean, it's just, well, it's silly. Now, one of the other things that's incredibly silly about Leticia and a vampire named Justice is that Justice is also a Jehovah's Witness. I'm telling you, the parallels with Lori Daybell just can't. Now, I know Mormons are not Jehovah's Witnesses, but they do go door to door and, give their testimony. I just thought this was just, I wanted to think about Leticia and getting into her head and exploring how it is that not only is she having conversations with vampires in a very rational and logical way, but she's making her vampires the inspiration for the movie Twilight, and also making them highly religious. Basically, what we have here is the kitchen sink defense. Leticia is throwing everything, every mental disorder, symptom, condition that she can think of to try to weasel out of her taking responsibility for the death of a little boy. What she doesn't know is that going to a hospital where the criminally insane live is no picnic. I would probably choose prison over being in a hospital with the criminally insane. Those are some scary people. And those are people that are not based in reality. And it can be a dangerous place depending on which hospital it is and what their protocol is. So, it's scary. One little anecdotal here. I think I've encountered one situation of a person with real DID. I think. Notice I'm being very careful about saying that, but I think. And here's how it went. Okay, we have a lady in the hospital who ended up in an airport in Chicago, and she doesn't know what her name is, where she came from, why she's in Chicago, or who bought her the plane ticket. Nevertheless, she's there. She has no money. She has no identification. She has no clothes. She has literally nothing. Nothing. And that was the beginning of trying to track down this very, very disturbed young woman. And to make a long story short, she actually, was being treated for, at the time it was called multiple personality disorder. And it is a condition. MPD and DID are the same things. And it's a condition, if real. There are plenty of professionals who take issue and say, yeah, not likely. The way it's described, there are certainly dissociative events, but to say that someone is living with a whole family inside of them is a little bit hard to understand or accept from a logical point of view, because to be aware of one another would suggest some level of integration, right? So there are lots of people that say this just isn't what you are naming it or what Hollywood has chosen to show. And then there are plenty of people that specialize in this, and they say, yeah, it is a real thing and it does work like this. Now, I have seen some instances of people saying, oh, honey, no, I have dissociative identity disorder. It wasn't me having sex with the other person. It was one of my alters. Okay. I have actually seen that where someone would have an affair and they would get caught, and then they would claim that they had DID and that it was a different personality that had an affair. That, again, not technically what dissociative identity disorder is. I think the professional on the stand today did say accurately that this is a condition that exists between 0 and possibly 1% of the population. To say it's rare is an understatement. It's most people go through their whole lives and never actually see it. It's, for example, the case of this young woman from the Chicago airport. Are you going to believe that she doesn't know where she is or what she's doing because an alter was in control? Or is it possible she has a head injury and she has amnesia? She can't form new memories. So she doesn't know what she's been doing because there's head injury. That's probably a more likely scenario. So whatever we want to name it, it's definitely a horse of a different color, and it's hard to know what it is when you have experts that are disagreeing on what it is and what the goals of therapy are, and even the techniques most useful. It's a little hard to accept. That's not a hard no, but it's a little bit difficult to accept. But what I certainly do not accept is, oh yes, Justin, I would really enjoy it if you would bring me some strawberry shortcake. Thank you so much, Justice. That was my vampire. I have a vampire of a button in my cell, and I just press that button and Justice shows up, and Justice brings me whatever I want. So he's a little bit like a vampire and a golden goose to get Leticia what Leticia wants. That is too logical. It's too rational to be DID. DID is an overwhelming breakdown of the system. And I mean the mood, the cognition, the movement, the behavior, being able to move your body around. People that have DID, they have a great deal of disruption in their ability to be effective in their day-to-day lives. They certainly don't have the ability, the way that the condition is defined and described, they simply do not have the ability to be able to hold a job. They don't have the ability to have a lasting relationship. There are chunks of time where the person has no idea where they've been or what they have been doing. They are quite often in such a dramatic state of decomposition that they are not bathed. Sometimes their brain cannot speak their language, whether they're Mexicans, they can't speak Spanish, or if they're British, they can't speak English. Sometimes they're so disrupted cognitively that they can't even speak their language. They have like a form of aphasia, right? That just can't come out. They lose complete track of time in terms of like calendar time or clock time. They have no awareness. They can probably they would be able to know that it was daytime or nighttime, right? They would be able to say, well, it's probably morning or maybe it's probably evening. But they really would not be able to say, now it's today the 26th or the 27th. Is this December or is this July? No, it's not there. The collective awareness, it's not working. To say that this is a global breakdown neurologically, it would be a better description. So these are people that will, if they do get themselves or one of their family members or even a social worker, if they do manage to get these people into therapy, they develop a relationship with a therapist trying to help them, there are lots of missed appointments because they don't remember. They may not remember that they have an appointment, or they remember they have the appointment, but they don't know what day it is, or they know what day it is, but they don't remember where it is, or they simply can't recall the name of the doctor that they're supposed to be going to see. They may not know how to get on public transportation to get them where they need to go. This is a horrible breakdown. So to say, oh, honey, it wasn't me having sex with the man next door. It was my alter, Martha. Right? It's not possible. It's not likely. If you consider the etiology of dissociative identity disorder, then you recognize that it comes into being because the child is experiencing such a high level of intense trauma that the child doesn't have the ability to manage what is happening. And so the conscious awareness it splinters off and it begins to have like a dream that even though something is happening to the body, the awareness of the mind becomes quite detached and dissociated from what the body's experiencing. And it can have a narrative. It can have like a full dream, like with a storyline, or it can just simply be flashes of different pictures or different memories or different times in space. Now, what we do know about children that are exposed to systematic abuse is that they do become, not all of them, but some of them can become quite practiced in dissociating. So I don't mean multiple personality disorder. I mean they can train their brain to go into that dream state that can separate out from what's happening in the room they're in, and they can like transport, like use their imagination and transport to something away from what's happening so that it doesn't actually continue. They don't believe that they're experiencing it. They can become pretty skilled at doing that, and it can end up being a skill that they carry with them into adulthood and they use later on. So there are lots of different dissociative states, like a fugue, and but again, this fantastical idea that someone has dramatically different people living inside of them, and each one is a complete and healthy personality, that suddenly somebody, this is so silly, y'all, it's so silly, that you dissociate, you have a full personality. Let's just call her Sally. Okay, Sunshine Sally. You have Sunshine Sally, who is a 12-year-old German girl. And you're just this kid that grew up in New Orleans, and you've never heard anyone speak German ever. Do you really believe that Sally is going to spontaneously develop the German language? How? The brain is a collection of learned facts and processes. In order for Sally to even know German, she has to at least have heard it at some point. And yet you have people making these fantastical claims. Oh, yes, I have 52 different personalities, and one of them is a young carpenter that I like to call Jesus. And Jesus came on the scene because it was December the 25th, and I was alone on Christmas Day, and Jesus took over to help me get through that trauma. That defies everything that we know research-wise, anecdotally, by people that have written books, that defies the very etiology of the condition. Why would you start with one person who was traumatized and learned how to dissociate and detach, and then suddenly they break off into a full person, a person who's organized and competent and capable of dealing with various things in the world, and they get a name and they have their own accent, maybe a different language? How? If the person themselves isn't whole to begin with, then how can Sally be whole on her own? I know it is an interesting concept. It might be kind of cool to consider the possibility, but many of these cases, rightly so, the researchers the people that specialize in this area of psychology and psychiatry, they themselves will say there was a self-serving element to this particular person's fractures, the multiple entities that developed, they had a reason for developing. Maybe it was to avoid a crime. Maybe it was to avoid a divorce because you were messing around, or gambling, or drinking too much. That there seemed to be a self-serving reason for claiming this dramatic fracture in the personality, rather than just, you know what, I screwed up. I did it. I did it. I need to do better. I need to learn how to do better. Or it's nobody's business that I did it, and therefore I'm not going to talk about it. But people have a hard time, accepting what they may think is shame. If they grow up in a home where they're told you're the most evil, horrible person on the face of this planet if you have affairs, and yet they're human, they make a mistake, they have an affair, well, they can't own up to it because they don't want to be an evil, horrible human. So same with gambling. Maybe they learn that, drinking alcohol makes you a terrible human being. And rather than owning up to, drinking, then it's easier for them to say, no, I am not a whole personality. I have a fractured personality. And Gus is a man that lives inside of me. And Gus is thirsty, man. He is thirsty. You see, so even the researchers will comment in a lot of their papers or books that, yeah, I was able to identify a self-serving element to this particular personality. All right. So patients can spend up to 15 years in treatment before being diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder. Let that sink in. 15 years. They are high frequency users of mental health services. When you look back at their history, their insurance use and whatnot, it is a never-ending list of prescriptions of so many different medications. Medications that you wouldn't even think would be part of mental health treatment. They are the people that are going for ketamine treatments. They are the people that are going and getting, electric shock therapy. They're the people that are going and getting the magnet stuff done. They've got 5 or 10 different psychiatrists and 25 different psychologists and 150 different therapists that they've been to. If you go to their home, you cannot stand the smell. They don't clean. They're not organized. Their brain doesn't have the ability to organize. So they very often will live, wear tattered clothes, be unkempt, not taking baths. This is a global breakdown of the system, the entire neurological network. It's a global breakdown. And so it's laughable when the psychologist is up on the stand and she's saying, well, I was meeting with Leticia, and Leticia had to stop our conversation so that she could address Justice, the vampire, who is also a Jehovah's Witness. And then she turned back to me and explained to me, oh, I'm so sorry, doctor. I was just addressing Justice, the Jehovah's Witness vampire who brings me strawberry shortcake. Do you see why it's just laughable? And it, in peer-reviewed journals, they will say you're just to be able to get that diagnosis, you're talking about 5, 10, 15 years of ongoing treatment, a history and background of mental health services that is shocking in depth and breadth. And finally, they'll say, this may be one of those situations. this might be somebody that has fractured. But again, we're not talking about somebody who dissociates and goes into a fugue state because trauma's happening. We're being told of different whole systems, whole individual people. I have a 9-year-old little boy named Jasper. I've got a 52-year-old fat guy named Gus who loves beer. And I've got a 17-year-old sorority co-ed. And when it's time for me to go to class, then I am the 17-year-old sorority girl. And when I want to play and color and paint, then I'm 9-year-old little Jasper. And when it's Friday night and it's time for me to howl at the moon, then I dress up like Gus and go drink tons of beer. It doesn't fit the psychopathology. It doesn't fit the etiology. What it fits is Hollywood nonsense. You know what I mean? It is a cool, it is an interesting possibility, but I think that people watched movies. In fact, there was like a superhero movie that was a guy with dissociative identity disorder who had like superhuman strength with one of his alters. It's just silly, you know. It's silly on the surface because it's silly on the surface because you ask yourself, how can a 35-year-old woman know what it's like to be a 52-year-old beer guzzling guy named Gus? So on the surface, on a shallow level, it's silly. But among people that understand mental illness, whether they're psychiatrists, psychologists, mental health care workers, if you've studied the condition and even if you've just read about it, you understand the basic etiology. If you've worked with people before that have a problem with dissociative states, that they've actually acquired that ability to dissociate during times of trauma, then you recognize not only is it silly on its surface, but it doesn't pass the logic test. Like the young lady who can speak perfectly fluent Cantonese, and she's never been anywhere in her life but Ohio. It's not just what we know about education and learning. That's not possible unless there's got to be some magic involved, right? So the goals of treatment for these people that are experiencing some of these symptoms and may in fact get this particular diagnosis, again, no matter how rare it is, the goals of treatment are focused on integration or reintegration. You start out with a focus on safety. These people are severely mentally ill, and therefore you get this high level of self-harm, a lot of suicidal ideation. Sometimes some of the alters are homicidal, is what they claim. I think it is convenient to blame it on a different personality. So establishing safety is like the very first objective. You got to get this person into a safe environment. They are a danger to themselves primarily and could be a danger to another person. So they have to be institutionalized, put in a hospital, have to be. And then you're looking at the symptom reduction first stabilizing symptoms, identifying and stabilizing symptoms. And then after they're at least stable, then you're talking about reducing these symptoms. We're talking years of work. This is a lot. Once you've targeted the symptoms and you've got the person at least to where they're, keeping up with what day it is, making sure they're taking care of their personal hygiene, at that point, then you're going back through traumatic memories. And before you can go back through traumatic memories, you have to teach them anxiety reduction skills. You've got to make sure that they're effectively medicated so that their coping skills can be effective when they begin to get upset. These are long processes, y'all. Long. Just working through an exposure therapy response inhibition scenario can take months and a year, depending on what it is, to move from basic relaxation skills to a modified kind of exposure hierarchy where you're just describing things you would be afraid of. And then after you go through the modified exposure, then moving to in vivo, which is real life exposure, and you have multiple levels of that, it could be a year or more before you ever get to the in vivo. Once you're in vivo, that can take another year all by itself. So this, you don't overkill your stepson, and then as you're languishing in jail thinking, gosh, I wonder if my borderline personality disorder is going to get me out of this. No, don't think so. I wonder if I tell him I have bipolar. I wonder if that would get me out. No, probably not. Ooh, but if I were Sybil, if I had an alternate reality that I could say did this, then I might be scot-free. At the very least, I could spend the rest of my days living in a mental health hospital painting pottery. She has no idea what a mental health hospital for the criminally insane looks like. So, yeah, this isn't going to work out for her. It's not going to work out for her. But I did the bit that I saw from the psychologist. I did enjoy that, and I want to finish listening to it because I only got to listen to a portion of it. But I wanted to make this video to really, drive home the point that dissociative identity disorder is everything. It destroys everything. It's overwhelmingly disruptive to every system in the body. All right. Hey, sweet tea. How are you doing? Hi, Jessica Rutledge. Is it time for one alter to mimic the person who abused them? Is it typical? Not, why did my brain see time? Weird. Is it typical for one alter to mimic the person who abused them? Well, okay, I'm gonna answer theoretically because I am among the skeptics for DID. I 100% know, like there's no doubt in my mind, dissociation is real. So don't get me wrong about this. So dissociation is definitely a real thing, and it is in fact a coping mechanism that the brain can use during times of trauma. People that are exposed to repeated traumas, especially in childhood when the brain still has a high level of plasticity, those people can become very efficient in their ability to dissociate. It becomes a skill that they can use. And sometimes, we'll end up working with people not to use that, to stay grounded in their environment, even when they begin to feel upset, but to stay grounded and stay present. Ask yourself, am I connected here? Am I in this moment? Am I responding rationally? Do I feel safe here? And so a lot of times we work with people to avoid using that skill because they can get very good at it depending on the extent of the abuse and the type. But I don't think it's a Sybil. I don't think it's perfectly formed alters. Now, let me say this. I've kind of picked on Sybil a little bit. The real case of Sybil, Um, that lady was not functioning well. She was not functioning well. She had lots of serious problems. And the psychiatrists that work with her, well, there were like three, but the primary one that ended up writing the book and everything, she almost became like the mother, the caretaker of Sybil. And had it not been for her, Sybil would have been lost to the streets. She would have disappeared and wouldn't have been found again. So she was not one of those instances where there was something convenient. She really did seem to be in full global, disintegration. But later stories that came out, and now Hollywood has really gotten a hold of DID and they've turned it into this fantasy. It's fantasy. I'm not going to be sitting here talking to you guys as me. And then suddenly I'm going to be going, ooh, monsieur, I am a French person. I don't know French. I can't do that. I can't speak French. And so it doesn't matter if I want to put on a French hat and wear red lipstick. I don't know how to speak French. My brain doesn't have the ability to spontaneously speak French. That's silly. It just doesn't. And yet that's what a lot of the Hollywood portrayals of DID have been. So I am a skeptic. Before I answer this, I'm a skeptic of the whole DID, but not dissociation. People do dissociate as a coping skill. Would they develop an alter that was typical of their abuser? So theoretically, I'm going to answer as a cognitive psychologist, and a cognitive psychologist would tell you everything we do, what we know, the way we behave, and how we feel is all based on the sum total of all of our experiences, everything that we've learned starting back from day one, the type of birth you had. That's true. So that answer theoretically would be, well, if my abuser abuses me, then don't I know that? Don't I learn what my abuser's tools and tactics are? And if I've learned what the tools and tactics of abuse are, doesn't that mean that I have a decision to use those things as well? So the answer theoretically would be if we're going by the assumption that DID is a real phenomenon, then I suppose theoretically, perhaps, yes, that could happen. Yeah, I hope that answered your question. I am skeptical too. It's just, it is so much. It's so, again, DID requires that a human being is not whole, that the human being has fractured, or sometimes I use the word splintered, and they're in pieces. Now, all of us have many people inside of us, right? Like how many, okay, I have a YouTube channel because I just want to be friends. That's all. I don't look at my YouTube channel as being an extension of my role as a clinical psychologist. I don't want that. I don't look at it as that. I want to come here and talk to friends and be silly and joke around and be a human being and have fun. That's what I want to do. I have work that I do. I do private practice. I do hospital work. I do teaching. I have a really full professional life all by itself. I don't need to add YouTube channel to my resume or vita. My goal for having a YouTube channel is because I just want to have fun, and I follow these trials, and I really love forensic psychology. I don't practice forensic psychology, but I really am interested in forensic psychology and the things that make people do what they do. And there's not a lot of people that want to talk about murder and mayhem. Am I right? And so you guys are my people. We have all found one another. And what we like to do is we like to watch these cases, and then we like to get online. We like to talk about them. I'm talking as a person. I'm talking as a friend. That's the goal for my channel. But if the person that you guys see here, I mean, it is still me. But when I'm at work, I do not talk about my family. So if I'm working in any context, doesn't matter what I'm doing, but related to, a work setting, I'm not going to talk about Piddle and Bill. I'm not going to tell stories about my family. I'm not going to show videos of my cats and my dogs and my birds. I'm not going to sing. I'm not going to break out in song. Can you imagine? Can you imagine working and you're sitting there with your therapist, your psychologist, and all of a sudden, something happens and they go, oh, zippity doo dah, zippity yay. You'd be like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with my therapist? This is too weird. And then you would be gone, right? But here we're being friends, and this is the relaxed person. And I don't have to, well, I hate to say that because that's not true. You get the relaxed part of my personality that is more childlike, that is here for fun, right? We have the shared interest that we like this whole forensic stuff. We like the trials and that kind of thing. And we're all here together as friends. But when I'm at work, I am not doing forensic stuff. Mine is all clinical or medical. So people that are recovering from closed head brain injury or severe burns, or I don't know, amputations, or adjusting to a new regime with diabetes medication, testing medication, those kinds of things, not anything related to what I do, on YouTube. And so we all have parts. We're all a little bit different inside. The person that you are with your wife or your husband is different than the person you are with your children, or the person you are when you go off with your friends for the weekend. We all are a little bit different, but our personalities are in touch with each other, correct? The different aspects demanded by the situation, all of those different variations in skills are all in touch and connected. What they're telling us is that people that have a DID, that the person I am here on YouTube is somebody totally different. And I have no idea that there's a woman out there who is a psychologist working with patients. And so here I'm one person. And then when I go off to work, I'm being a psychologist, and I have no idea that there's a YouTube channel with my friends there. It defies logic. It defies logic that a person who is splintered, that when they splinter into whole personalities. Why? That doesn't make sense. So again, it's a bit self-serving. I see critters playing music for me. It's a bit self-serving, there are dissociative states that people, often use. And indeed, visualization, yoga, certain types of breathing styles, those can provide altered states of consciousness that is healthy, and it's within your control. It'll give you an altered state of consciousness that's very relaxing, lower your blood pressure, and your body and your mental health benefit from that. But it's within your control. You're not forgetting who you are. You're finding a way to sort of separate the stress and strain of everyday life with this one moment in time, with the proper breathing and the proper imagination, visualization, that you can achieve a hyper relaxed state. but you can also come back out of it. It's within your control. So it's no. When you hear so many people tell you that they discovered that they had multiple personality disorder because oopsie, their husband had an affair. Their husband or their wife have an affair and they come home and say, "Oh, darling, I just discovered I have multiple personality disorder because I've been running around with old Joe Blow having sex for 10 years and I didn't know it." But there's pictures now. There's pictures that come out on a revenge website. Sorry, honey. I guess we better get me some treatment. Okay, that's not real. It's not real. If a person's personality is so severely fragmented that they're losing large blocks of time, they're forgetting to take a bath. They don't know what day of the week it is. They don't know what season they're in. How in the world can they have a relationship with anyone doing anything? It's just nonsense. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. I'm rattled by the defense dipping its toes into the DSM and many different mental diagnoses instead of sticking to DID. They're just trying to. I wonder if what happened is that the DID was introduced by the previous defense team and that it's sort of foreclosed, right? If she comes up and she says, "Well, I have DID and I can't be held responsible for what Bobby Joe did." "Oh, Bobby Joe, she's a cat, man. You better watch out for Bobby Joe. She got a straight blade." You know what I mean? And she's the one that went after Gannon. Bobby Joe. Not Leticia, not Dr. T. No. It's Bobby Joe. Use the MF word and whip her blade around. No. If they come up and say, "Okay, well, I was just lying about that. I don't know why I told such a lie, but I did. I wish I hadn't, but I did. But the real diagnosis is yada, yada, yada." It gets really messy, doesn't it? It gets really messy. So it's just a train wreck, people. If you agree that this Leticia Stauch defense is a train wreck, kitchen sink defense, we're going to throw everything there is to throw at the wall and see what sticks. Defense, put a 1. If you think that this defense has been very well done, put a 2. Bobby Joe and justice. Yes. They are. Yes, she's full of it. It's silly. But look, and here's the other thing that hurts me, I think, a little bit. I am perfectly aware, more than you know, and I'm not going to talk about that, but I am very well aware that the death of the little boy is no laughing matter. I get it. I totally trust me. But I'm also I don't respond well to virtue signaling, and I'm a pretty authentic person. I mean, what you see is what you get, and you may not like me. And that's okay. That's your business. But at least I am who I am. I think if you lose the ability to laugh, to find amusement in ridiculous situations, then I think you're predisposing yourself to a high level of, anxiety and depression yourself. I think a big part of being a mentally healthy person is staying grounded and not being governed by some set of arbitrary rules to try to make you look like a good person. You either are a good person or you're not, but pretending to be the most virtuous person in the room is not really going to be something that's going to serve you well, right? We know that what happened to Gannon was devastating. I mean, it makes you nauseated. There's a reason that I don't cover these cases related to children. It's too close to home. It's, So I avoid, when it comes to the details of the violence and such, I find my healthy space and I don't, allow that to get in my head for a reason. But in the case of Leticia, not what she did to Gannon. What she did to Gannon was monstrous, and I think she deserves the death penalty. Hands down, 100%. If she did it, firing squad, I wouldn't bat an eye at that. But I can also laugh at her, how ridiculous that she is. This has become so ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's not even, she's ridiculous. The only other word that I can come up with besides ridiculous is redonkulous. I mean, that's how bad she is. She's absurd. She's absurd. So if you can't laugh at her absurdity and how on some level, it's kind of sad, right? It's kind of sad that she is capable of these monstrous acts, but she's not even capable of self-serving protection. She not only does she do these monstrous acts, but then she tells the most ridiculous, absurd lies. Eduardo, glad you got out of that charge, big guy. It's just so she's just pitiful. And you can say that this pitiful demeanor where she's trying all these different little tools and tactics. You can say it's embarrassing. You can say it's evidence of her personality disorder. Can you imagine being married to this girl for even a week? I mean, people are marveling that, like people in my real life, they're watching this and they're saying, how did Al keep from killing her? That's the big question, is how did he live with her for so long and not, if this is what she's been doing all along. And I think people will agree, this is not the way she's been behaving all along. She was actually very well organized and living effectively. She got mad at Al. He was going to leave her. He was having an affair. He wanted away from her. And there was hell to pay, literally. Now she doesn't know any limits in terms of trying to save herself. And she's coming off looking like a clown. All right. That peanut butter. You know where I get my special messages? Not in peanut butter. I don't eat peanut butter. It makes my stomach hurt and it's kind of gross. But you know where I get my messages from? Where's the Coke sign? Oh, they made it little, didn't they? Right here. Diet Coke, baby. 100%. I just close one eye and I look down and my special messages are swirling around in that sweet elixir. Caffeine. Okay. All right. Let's see. If she refused to plead guilty, her lawyers are doing a good job with what that? Agreed, Cyan on crime. 100% agreed. I cannot even imagine how do you work with a woman like this in developing some level of defense? No, this is not, I have zero judgment against her attorneys. The U.S. Constitution says that we are entitled to a defense, and they're doing the best they can and considering what they're working with. But she is audacious. She acts with just in some ways, it reminds me of these people that you're starting to see on YouTube, not YouTube, but Twitter, where people are just like walking up to each other and they're just beating each other. Like this is beating it. It's never been like this in history before. And now we got people beating each other up on airplanes and This one video I watched the other night. It's like a 5-star hotel, right? $500-600 a night, and you got this group of people beating each other up in the lobby. You're like, what? Wait, what? Why are you doing that? That's so strange. Leticia reminds me of those types of people, just acting in ways that are so far outside the expected code of behavior, just our general cultural expectation, right? She's just strange in her behavior. Remember the deal where she had her hairdo was all or like all crazy, right? She's really something. I think she's not done yet. I'm going to tell you, I think we're going to have an outburst. I think before this thing is over, she is going to one day in court, she is going to scream or yell. Yeah, savage. Correct, Jessica. It's pretty nutty what's happening. But I don't think she's done. I think she's going to really show out one day. I think she's beginning to see that no one is buying this. Her attorneys are trying, but I don't think she's much help because she's so out of touch with, logic and rational thought. I think she's going to show out. What do y'all think? Do y'all think she's going to, why can a known liar, Dr. Yada Yada, say she was abused, appeal to sympathy without her claims of parental abuse being subjected to cross-examination? Well, I don't think she has a doctorate degree, does she? Didn't they find out that wasn't real? Yeah, I think she's going to show out. She's going to have one last big hoorah before the jury starts deliberations. She's going to want to leave them with an image of something so crazy. I believe that. But anyway, didn't they decide that she didn't have a PhD? Not a PhD. It wasn't a Doctorate of Education, I think. I don't think she had it. It's fake. I'm being sarcastic. Okay, BB. Yes. I don't know. Why can a known liar say she was abused, appeal to sympathy? Well, if she takes the stand, okay, so here's the deal. If she takes the stand, then and she talks about being abused as a child, then she can be cross-examined. So she's not going to take a stand. But I don't think she would take the stand anyway because I think she's a coward. She's a bully. She beat up a little kid. She's a bully. So she's weak and ineffective, and she knows that. So she won't. Lori? Sweet Lori? Lori's going to take the stand, I think. I think Lori won't be able to not take the stand. I think Lori believes in her head that this is it, that this is her. This is what her whole life has led up to, was being famous and an agent of God, and that she's separate from all the rest of us lowly sinners and peons. I think she's going to, unless Archibald and Thomas can stop her. If they can talk her out of it, then okay. But boy, she is deep in her delusions. And delusion is not mental illness. Well, no. Delusion is not incompetence. Delusion is not insanity in terms of a legal term. She is a goddess, damn it. Get it right. That's right, critters. She's a goddess. All right. It was a faked certificate. Lord. Well, and she tried to fake the lie detector polygraph, right? And they were like, ooh, this is a twisted sister, and told on her. So, she kind of got in trouble there. So yeah, I don't think that. I think she's going to show out big. I don't think she'll take the stand. And if the psychologist or other witnesses, if they testify to what she said or did, they're not. They're just talking about her behavior or words. They are not saying that in fact she was abused. So that's the difference. But if she gets up there and says it, then it can be cross-examined. Yeah. Hey, sweet tea. All right. Let me see if I missed anything. Yeah, Miss Catherine, I don't think she is. Bobby Joe and Justice, the renegade vampire Jehovah's Witnesses. They are on the run. Well, I don't know. Did they give her a mask? I believe they gave her a mask. I think they gave her a mask, and it did show that she was malingering. The MMPI was unusable because it showed that her pattern of responding showed that she was, not telling the truth. So she's in trouble. She's going down. All right. That was my gangster persona. All right. Not gangster, I don't guess what was it. Probably 1970s reject. So all right. So that is what I'm going to move my live related to the serial killers. That was supposed to be done at 3:00. I'm going to move that to about 6 or maybe 7. And then I'm going to get caught up on the Leticia Stauch. This is crazy right now. We've got Leticia Stauch, and then, Lauren on Hidden, she'll be releasing the audio for the Lori Vallow case at about 7. I'm going to have to do my live on the serial killers at around 3:00. Not 3, 6:00. I'm moving it. Right now I have it set for 3. I'm going to change it to 6. I'm going to watch as much of Stauch as I can. And then I got to be ready for Lauren when she does the audio at around 7. This is a crazy period of time for true crime, isn't it? Pretty crazy. All right. When do you think we'll hear from Melanie Pulowski? She's a trip. 6 Central DB would be 5 Eastern. If I was the jail, I would take the peanut butter away from Leticia. No peanut butter for you, Leticia. Yeah. Jessica, did you see Melanie Pulowski when she and Alex showed up at the grandparents' house and she was trying to get her kids and the cops were there? I mean, the cops were very angry with her. Hey, Aldo Cat, welcome. I know. I'm ready to see Melonice. Yes, that's going to be an interesting, yeah. Yes, 5 Eastern, DB. Yep. All right. Yeah, all of it. It's crazy, right? It's so crazy. Have y'all looked up Homer J. Maximus? There's a YouTube, not a YouTube, a Facebook site or page for Homer Maximus. I think it's Alex. Oh, Jessica saw it. Creepy, right? The little bio, creepy. He's a creepy dude. Creepy guy. All right, everybody. Okay, so that's the skinny on DID. I'm a skeptic. I do believe in altered states of consciousness, which would include some level of dissociation as a defense mechanism. But I don't believe that we literally fragment into whole personalities. Defies logic. It doesn't match the etiology. It doesn't go along with the psychopathology as we know it. Doesn't fit. All right. It's way too self-serving and convenient, in my opinion. All right. Thank y'all for being here. I appreciate it so much. I hope that you guys have a good afternoon. And like I said, I am going to go and watch more of the Leticia Stauch testimony from the mental health people, the testing. Okay. That's what I like. All right. Y'all have a good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it so much. Bye.